I'm Raymond Baker, founding president of Global Financial Integrity. The key element in the operation of the global financial secrecy system is transfer pricing. That's the way you make the system work. Transfer pricing is a perfectly legitimate subject. When a corporation has to sell something from one subsidiary to another subsidiary, it has to put a price on that. And that price has to take into consideration manufacturing cost and research and development and marketing and management overheads and so forth. So you have to figure out what is the appropriate price to put on that transfer. Transfer pricing becomes abusive when you misstate the real value that you have calculated and you make it a value that is above or below that for the purpose of shifting something across borders at something different than its real value. The end result is massive transfers of money across borders done for the purpose of tax evasion and tax avoidance. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, the industries that were most prolific in this were industries that were dealing in merchandise trade. Let me give you an example of the most egregious use of transfer pricing that I've ever seen in my many decades of looking at this phenomenon. Diamonds were exported out of South Africa for a century at zero value. No recorded value on those diamonds. The way that that's done is that the diamond mining company sells the diamonds, transfers the diamonds to its own subsidiary established, let's say, in Europe. And that subsidiary then sells it to diamond cutters and jewelers and so forth. But all the money stays in Europe, stays in that subsidiary. Very little of it ever comes back to South Africa. The tech companies that deal primarily in intellectual property have become the most aggressive users of transfer pricing over the last 20 or 25 years. And the reason for that is because you can't tell what is the proper price at which to trade intellectual property. So the most technically oriented companies are misinvoicing their licenses and royalties and research and development expenditures and management fees and so forth. There are no comparable prices on which countries, governments can look at to see what should be the price of that. So I wrote a book entitled Capitalism's Achilles Heel. And in that book, I included what I entitled the Dirty Money User Manual. I made it very clear how you do these transactions. Believe me, I wasn't informing anybody in the corporate sector who already knew how to do this. I wrote it for the purpose of informing other people who don't know how it's done. You can misinvoice just about anything by 10 or 20%, and governments cannot tell what's going on. It's very difficult to see what's going on. The United States is very weak in trying to curtail this, and the reason is straightforward because billions of dollars are brought into the United States through these abusive transfer pricing mechanisms. This is a perversion of the way that capitalism is supposed to operate, but it has become normalized in international business. I have never known a multinational, multi-billion-dollar, multi-product corporation that did not use abusive transfer pricing in some aspect of its operations. We're talking about a system whose sole purpose is to move money to the wealthy. There isn't a single element of this system that's designed to help the poor or the middle class. On the contrary, the purpose of it is to shift money from the bottom to the top. That's the purpose of transfer pricing operating in the middle of the financial secrecy system.